hope so.
But they thought maybe graders.
We can't get our Amazon.
But
Sure.
she said there might be some like lakes that gets around my nerves and that.
Shop, I guess, all there's also a picture.
Just cut it out.
Save you a lot of money.
No, I'll take my chances with them. At least they know how to spin the call.
Maybe. You're only gonna live that down, are you?
No, I'm not, because that's funny, you did it twice.
Sorry.
I'm
I'm so bad that way.
You did not know what I don't mean that.
I can't remember what that was.
All right,
That's the worst part. You
10,
didn't say what I was thinking of.
9, 8, 3. Good evening and welcome to the Defiance City Council meeting for tonight, December 13th, 2022. Before we get underway, we have Pastor Brobston here in order to open us up with prayer.
Who would you say?
Ben Paulson,
Let us pray.
thanks for being our guest.
Thanks for having me. We appreciate it. Oh, Father, thank you for another day. Thank you for this opportunity to gather, to discuss the city's business. Lord, as it's December and Christmas is getting closer, we thank you for the greatest gift ever given. We thank you for Jesus. Thank you for your goodness, your mercy, your love. Lord, and I thank you for the men and women in this room who give up themselves, who give up their time to be away from their families, to come together, to talk about the business of the city, to do what's in our city's best interest for the people. Pray that you would give them wisdom, direction. Lord, may we look to the good of others and not to our own good. May we be selfless, not selfish. You are so good, Lord. You're the giver of all good gifts. We thank you for another day to live and to praise you. We love you, Lord. Through Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Paulson. This meeting is called to order. Let the record show that all members of council are present this evening. Would you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I reviewed the index minutes for the December 6th, 2022 City Council meeting. Do we have a motion to correct or amend the minutes as presented? Without any, I will approve the same. Do we have any liaison committee reports or requests? Okay. Without any, do we have any comments from council this evening? Mrs. Crutch.
Yeah, I just want to say best wishes to you, John, as this is your last meeting with us in City Council, so best wishes to you at Defiance College. Hope they treat you well.
Thanks very much.
Here, here. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Mr. Hancock?
Yes, I've had a number of citizens ask if they could, concerning the 1918 building, has there been any activity or anything progressing with that building?
Besides paranormal.
Besides paranormal, correct.
That was a joke.
There are inquiries occasionally. Most of them go into Erica Williser's office at the CIC. There's been tours of the building. There's folks out there that are discussing things, but nothing firm. No contracts are being prepared or anything such as that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from council? There's nothing on my desk this evening. Mayor McCann.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two things from me this evening. Mr. Waxler, last week you asked about the compost site. We looked it up. It does close this Saturday.
Correct.
So this will be the last opportunity. And other than that, it was just last week, maybe the week before, received a email from the folks from Whirler, and they're proposing that because of the truck that they use currently to gather the bins or tubs that we use, that particular truck is aging and in need of replacement. And before they pursued replacement, they proposed that we switch from those tubs or bins to Mighty Tidies like we use for our trash. So Michelle Amarez and Brock Coburn are both here from Whirler and discuss it with council. If you have any questions of them, you can ask them. Any questions of Mr. O'Donnell on the contract side of things, you can do that as well. So Michelle, Brock?
Good evening. We reached out to Mayor McCann to propose that we switch the services to carts. I think that was kind of a goal of ours to get to this at some point. But yeah, with our truck aging, it needs some major repairs, and figured we'd take the opportunity to switch to an automated truck. Seeing as how that specific truck is only utilized here in Defiance, and I think the services automated would be beneficial for the residents as well.
So currently, Brock, the largest Mighty Tidy, like I have at my home, is a 96 gallon, and you're proposing a 60 gallon.
Correct. So we service recycling weekly in the city of Defiance. So in my opinion, I feel the 60 gallon is a good size. That's basically equivalent to 4 of the bins currently. Most residents in Defiance set out 2 bins right now weekly. That's what we basically pass out to them. I know there's additional, we take more than 2 bins currently if they set it out, but that's basically the standard. Most our villages, other villages that we service have a 96 gallon for trash and recycling, but they are serviced recycling every other week. So those residents, need that extra space for that extra week that they're holding their recyclables.
And I remember you shared a number with us last week when we talked about how many folks currently have Mighty Tidies for recycling and pay for those.
Yeah, so currently we offer Mighty Tidies to residents at an additional charge. We have, I think, 259 current residents that pay for that service. So with this switch that we're proposing, those residents would receive that for free.
Okay.
So there's no additional cost to doing this, is that what you're saying?
Correct. Not on the bill that we're currently charging. We are proposing that we will provide these carts. We're asking in return for a extension of the contract. We're going to have pretty significant costs involved in providing these carts to the residents. So that's basically what we're asking in return.
Go ahead.
When's the contract up here?
2032, June 30th, 2032. The 2018 addendum that council approved, August of 2018, allowed for an additional 10-year extension.
Right. So you want to go beyond that? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So in that addendum, I believe it states that city can extend that for another 10 years. And I guess that's what we'd be asking for.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes, with the current tubs, the green tubs.
Yep.
Will there be an exchange for those residents that, will they receive the other one, the 60 gallon for the tubs? Is that how they?
Yeah, so when we deploy this, we would pick up those green bins from everyone and give them a 60 gallon Mighty Tidy in exchange.
And we'd probably be communicating on which area we're gonna be doing this at certain times or certain pickup days.
Yeah, so we'd probably deploy it the same as the trash. We'd pick a specific week to start, and we worked through Monday's route and then went on to Tuesdays
And that leads into my next question, time frame. Are we looking at midsummer?
Yeah, probably. I mean, like we were discussing, to get a truck is, 6 months to 9 months for us to get a truck like that. Our carts are probably 8 to 12 weeks out. So it would definitely be something spring, summer before we would be deploying the cart.
Just to get an idea of size wise, cause I know some people are gonna be concerned with the addition, keeping this additional tote.
Yep.
The smaller mighty tidies that people have opted for, what size are those?
Yeah, so the smallest ones we offer in the city are 35 gallons. Those are the kind of skinny, pretty small ones.
Will there be an option for people for the smaller, for the recycling as well? Because I mean, I think that's gonna be your biggest concern. Some people aren't gonna wanna store.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something we're open to. Doing
And obviously
for
people
those
can opt
residents.
out as well, right?
Yeah, people can opt out of the service. There's several residents now that don't recycle at all. So they do not have to take this additional cart if they don't want it. But at any time, if they want to come to the office or call into the office, we would deliver them one out. And that's kind of how it goes now with those bins. You know, if somebody moves into the city and they want to recycle, they'll call our office and say, hey, can we recycle? And we tell them, yeah, you can pick up 2 bins, or we can deliver 2 bins out to you, and just set those out at the curb. And so we'll definitely be swapping carts in
Just
and out.
lastly, say for someone like myself who has just paid the bill and has the larger mighty tidy, will the larger ones, will those be a fee on top?
So you're saying you currently have a recycling mighty
Yeah.
tidy?
Mhm.
So if you, I mean, I guess, we would issue you a credit at whatever point we decide to deploy these. We'll credit you back, however many months you've paid for already.
But will you still be using that larger size that, 'cause I've got the big ones bigger than the
Yeah, so we would
standard mighty tidy.
I guess that's something we can decide too, is if council feels there's a need to have those 96 gallon carts available for residents, then we certainly could.
I just didn't know if you wanted to standardize everything to get it on
I
a
mean,
field for you.
if size doesn't really matter to us. I mean, our truck can service it. Obviously, inventory wise, it is easier for us to try to keep one size. But I know there's residents that may want that smaller one or want a bigger one, and I get that. But yeah, and that's why we were offering proposing the 60 gallons, was we felt that was a good size cart for weekly service.
Mr. Waxler?
Oh, I was gonna ask, and he kinda threw me off there, cause he's asked about the small one, then the larger one, and then asking about, being consistent in size, so what you're saying is you can get the 35 or the 60, basically, or whatever.
Yeah, we can do it.
Possibly.
Mr.
You
Hancock?
confused me when you started talking, you guys want a uniform, then you want, I got a real big one, so let's go with that, I didn't know.
I think you were kind of asking, like,
If
could
you
you
want
keep
that
the big
back,
one, would there be
right.
additional charges?
Yeah.
Because it
Oh,
was
so you're
six-
asking if
that's
you
kind of
kept
what
the
he was
96
asking, yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
somebody,
Yeah.
okay.
Our goal is 60.
There would be no additional
Yeah.
charge.
Right.
But-
I just wanted to compliment that it's nice to have 2 different color lids, for most of them, cause, for me, it's yellow was recyclable and I believe it's black for the normal, so that's very nice.
Yeah, and we would have yellow on all of these.
So the people that have the cars now, like Josh, there won't be a charge for them anymore, is that what you're saying?
Correct, he would start receiving it for free.
Okay, any other questions?
One more point, Mr. President. Just wanna, the tubs will go away, the
Correct.
tubs, crates, whatever we're calling them, they'll go away. That will not be an option. It'll be some sort of a cart on wheels, yellow lid.
Yep.
Opening faces the street.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which I think we've coached the residents.
Just turned one
for the
around
most
the other
part,
day.
so.
I think the biggest thing, going fully automated on both is, people need to know that there needs to be a
Little
distance
space.
between the two, 3 feet, 4 feet between the two, because, each truck will have the automated arm, so, that was, the other villages and cities that, went beginning of the contract went automated on both. That was the biggest educational tool, was sending out a letter with a picture of them saying, we need them to be 3 feet apart so each automated truck can grab that container. So we have those pictures and letters ready to go that can go out with billing or however it needs to be done, but.
By the time you get your truck and you get the carts, we're gonna have new website with some very efficient communication systems in place. So we should be able to work together on that
Okay.
later
That's great.
next year.
So what's the timeline on this for when it may go into operation?
I mean, I
Depends on the truck.
Depends on the
Right.
truck, right?
yeah,
we need to
I mean, I
execute
would
a
think spring.
Estimation.
contract addendum, probably early January. And that'll give them the green light to start working on the,
So it'll come to us so we can okay before, so they can get things in order.
So no rate increase. Mighty Tidies are purchased by Whirler and you can opt out. That's one thing that we talked about in our meeting, that other villages and cities, it's mandatory that they have both per their contract. Here is very unique because if you don't wanna recycle and you don't recycle now, then we won't deliver a bin. We'll just have to, send out a letter, and if you'd like to opt out, send this back. If you'd like the 60 gallons, send it back, so we can have the delivery schedules ready to roll when we're implementing the automation.
Probably ought to cover one small point. Speaking from personal experience, sometimes Mrs. McCann goes overboard, especially this time of year. And we end up with an overabundance of cardboard boxes that I try and consolidate, but like this week, there's no way they would all fit in a 260 gallon cart.
That's because you had Christmas for your 12 grandkids.
Yes, we did. So do I need to gradually, everything needs to be in the container, correct?
Yeah, so what we do in other villages is if you can break them down into smaller boxes and set those out, we will take them on the outside of the cart as well. We just,
Okay,
our driver gets out, throws them into, refills your Mighty
Alright.
Tidy and dumps it. So as long as we can fit it back into that cart
Yep.
and refill, we'd be able to take
good deal.
extra.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
I know she's busy tonight and not watching, so
That's why you was.
Safe. Good call.
It'll be in the paper, right, Todd?
Anything else, Mayor McCann?
That's
Thank
all,
you.
sir.
Mr. O'Donnell?
I have nothing for you tonight.
Mr. Leonard?
You know what, just one quick thing, and I wasn't gonna do this, but I will. I have, I've thoroughly enjoyed this job. I claim to be from the Akron area, but the truth is I've lived here for 13 years, and that's the longest I've ever spent in a single home. And I'm not leaving town, I'm staying here. I'm happy that I'm doing that, and I hope that the relationships I have with you all will continue, and again, thanks a lot, appreciate it.
Thank you very much. With that, we have 3 items of legislation for this evening.
First reading by caption only, an ordinance amending ordinance number 8360 passed December 7, 2021, to make appropriation for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Defiance, Ohio during the period of January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022.
Mr. Leonard?
Thank you. So it's become kind of the norm to, at the end of the year, have a pretty sizable supplemental appropriation at the end of the year to help close the books. And I want to go over a little bit of this, and I'm going to work off of the kind of the memo that I sent, or that I include with the ordinance. So many of the items on here are things we've talked about through the year. You've passed legislation on, but the appropriation is the last step that needs to be done. And so I'd like to review some of these things, and I'm going to be kind of brief, and I'm going to hit the big ones because a lot of what makes up this big dollar amount is will be familiar to you and pretty easily explainable. So again, on that sheet, I'm looking at maybe the first 4 or 5 line items under city administrator in the division column. The first four line items, they total $87,450. Those all have to do with the transition of the new administrator. You'll all recall, for January through June, we were paying two people out of that office and the pensions and health insurance that goes along with that. So point being, kind of a one-time thing. That's not a repeatable, that's not something you should see again. A few lines down under finance, the four line items under finance total $33,700. Those are all related to turnover we had in the HR and the human resources officer. So there was some additional pay for that individual and a higher level of health insurance that the new individual took. There was a retirement payout for the old individual. So that explains a lot of the money there. A few items down from there under buildings and land, I've got a $50,000 line item that's directly related to the HVAC system at the Muni Court that we just talked about a few weeks ago. I'm going to skip a few lines and go down to parks. Maybe the last three line items under parks. That totals almost $60,000, and those all have to do with trees. A small part of that is funded with a tree grant. We just talked about new plantings, and we got a grant for some new plantings. We also had at least 2 or 3 major storms that blew through over the summer and ate up about half of the regular tree maintenance budget. And then we're supplementing the original tree maintenance contract. So it was a bad year for trees, or a good year for trees, depending on how you look at it. The last line on that page, $100,000 under income tax. We had to boost the amount we appropriated for tax refunds. That's usually a good sign. Refunds are always going to be some percentage of the income of the tax revenues you take in. And if we have to increase that number, it usually means we've taken in more taxes than we had originally anticipated. On the second page, some of the bigger items, $60,000 under police. That was related to appropriating the money to balance out the cost of the body cams. Some of that was grant funded, but there was other equipment that was related to the car cameras and the body cameras that weren't grant covered. And there are some big personnel expenses out of fire. I will say vacation conversion is something that employees are entitled to do, but we don't normally anticipate. Really don't even ever budget vacation conversion because it's kind of an unpredictable number. Retirement conversion, we had 1 or 2 retirements out of the fire department, and when they go, they're entitled to cash out their unused vacation and sick. We don't normally budget that unless we know for a fact that we've got a retirement date on an individual in a department at the time we put the budget together. Overtime in fire was big. It seemingly always is. I don't have any better explanation as to why today than I've had for the last 13 years. But I know I have to cover the line item. Down to the bottom of that page, $2.4 million under water distribution. That's directly related to the bond issue that we just did, and we'll be closing that. In 2 days, we'll close that, and we'll actually receive the money that we issued in those bonds. That was for the water line crossing under the river and for some additional costs out of the West High Street project due to some of the inflationary factors we've talked about. And then on the third page, 2 items, just a quick note. $57,000 under refuse collection. That's another one of these that's usually a good number. If we have to increase the appropriation that we send to Whirler, that means we've taken in more in refuse collections than we had anticipated. And a couple lines down from that, similarly under DDVB, $43,000. To increase that appropriation means we took in more hotel motel tax money than we had originally anticipated, and I need to appropriate the money so DDVB can get their share. those were the big ones that I wanted to mention. There are a number of other items in here. I can discuss any of them or all of them if you choose, but I'll leave it at that unless you have any other further questions. This will allow us to close the year, all the line items in the red, all the funds, in the black. All the line items, all the funds in the black.
Do we have any questions in these regards? Mr. Waxler?
No further questions, motion to suspend and call.
Motion to suspend and call.
Second.
Second, Mr. Mast?
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Mast?
Yes.
Mr. Waxler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
And Mr. Engel?
Yes. Motion adopted.
Motion to adopt, Mr. Engel. Second, Mr. Corbett?
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Mast?
Yes.
Mr. Waxler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
And Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
This ordinance is adopted.
First reading by caption only, an ordinance authorizing a transfer of funds for the city of Defiance, Ohio for the year ending December 31st, 2022.
Mr. Leonard?
Thank you. So, on a related note, council always has to approve these transfers between funds, and we approved what I thought would be the last one for the year last week. But in balancing out all these numbers, the police and fire fund was with one more pay to go and overtime in police and fire a little less predictable than some of the others. I didn't want to cut the police and fire fund too close to being out of balance. So this additional $50,000 transfer from the general fund to police and fire fund will prevent that possibility. And of course, what doesn't get spent just rolls into the next year and will be a part of that police and fire balance next year.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Leonard? Mr. Waxler?
No further questions, motion to suspend and call.
Motion to suspend and call. Second, Mr. Mast?
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Mast?
Yes.
Mr. Waxler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
And Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt, Mrs. Crutch.
Second.
Second, Mr. Hancock.
Mr. Mast?
Yes.
Mr. Waxler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
And Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
This ordinance is also adopted.
First reading by caption only, an ordinance authorizing a monthly transfer of funds for the city of Defiance, Ohio for the year ending December 31st, 2023.
And lastly, Mr. Leonard.
Last one, thank you. In the last few weeks and the next few weeks to come, I'm doing everything I can to get the year closed. It's only December 13th. So we're working hard to do everything I can to have the city in a good position in terms of closing the year. I'm also trying to do everything I can to help with the transition of opening up a new year, and the things I can do are a little bit limited before January 1st, but one of the things I can do is bring this transfer ordinance to you a little earlier than we normally would, but this ordinance would authorize the first 9 months worth of transfers that are built into the 2023 budget, and would just means it's an ordinance that someone is not going to have to bring in January.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Leonard? Mr. Waxler?
No further questions, motion to suspend and call.
Motion to suspend and call. Second, Mr. Engel.
Mr. Waxler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
And Mr. Mast?
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt, Mr. Corbett. Second, Mr. Mast.
Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Mast?
Yes.
And Mr. Waxler?
Yes.
Yes.
Then this ordinance is also
You
adopted.
call me,
You missed it.
Okay,
but I will.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Volunteered. All right, unless there are any citizens' concerns, we'll reconvene at the beginning of January. We don't have any more meetings for the month of December. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Merry Christmas, everybody. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second, Mr. Engel. All those in favor of adjourning?